Today I'll be making sweet and sour meatballs, and I'll show you how to make the meatballs, or how I make meatballs, and also how to make sweet and sour sauce homemade. The recipe for everything will be in the video description along with the measurements. I've already got the ingredients lined up. 1 egg, a small potato, and a quarter of an onion, pepper, and salt. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grate the potato and onion into the hamburger, which is already in the bowl, as you can see. You don't have to add a potato, it's just something that I grew up on for meatballs and even hamburgers, believe it or not. And it helps keep the hamburger together. That's the main reason. And it also bulks up the hamburger a little bit too. Now we're doing the onion. This might be a little bit hard. You don't want too much onion because it adds a lot of moisture. Next we'll add 1 teaspoon of salt. And that's about 2 pounds of hamburger, ground beef. And just throw that in. Now we'll add the egg, just 1 egg. And lastly, just a little bit of pepper, not even probably half a teaspoon. And that's it. Now we just have to mix through the hamburger and get all the ingredients together. That's always hard to do. Might be easier to do with your hands. I'll do the rest with my hands, otherwise we'll be here forever. Now the next thing we'll do is put the meatballs into the frying pan, and I'll just ball up a couple and then let them fry, and then we'll move on to the sauce. And there will also be timestamps in the video description so you can skip ahead to the sauce if you don't want to watch the meat part. Now I will start to put the meatballs in, and I just use a tablespoon and take a tablespoonful of meat and then roll it in a ball in my hand. Then put it in the frying pan. They don't all have to be the same size. So while those are frying, we'll make the sauce, and then we'll be putting the meatballs and the sauce into our roaster in the oven. So now I'll be making the sauce. I got the 1 cup white sugar, 3/4 cup vinegar, white vinegar, 1 can of tomato sauce, mustard, and ketchup. It does call for dry mustard, but I usually only have prepared mustard. So we'll put the 1 cup of sugar in there. And we'll add the vinegar. Now I'll quickly open the can of tomato sauce. And I'll add the can of tomato sauce. I'll just scrape it out. Now we'll do a teaspoon of mustard. I'll put that in there. Now we'll do the 1 cup ketchup. Oh, of course it exploded. Might have to open a new ketchup. got kind of messy. That's what ketchup does. I'll go get a new ketchup and I'll be right back. Now I got a new ketchup. So I'll just add the rest of the cup in here. And that's about a cup. And then you just add that to the bowl. And again, I'll just scrape it out a bit. Now I'll just take the spoon. That's what it looks like before it's mixed. Now I'll just take the spoon and mix it up. And you want to mix it up until you can feel that the sugar is dissolved. Sometimes it doesn't dissolve fully, so that doesn't matter. The heat in the oven, once it's in the roaster, will dissolve it the rest of the way. There's one other step after we stir this that I have to do yet. And the last step will be adding cornstarch. And I've got Fleischmann's cornstarch, and I'll be adding 2 tablespoons. Now I have to add a little bit of cold water. That's probably enough. And then you just stir it around a little bit. Try to dissolve everything. Now you add the cornstarch to the sauce. And you can see it there. And then you just stir it in. And while it's in the roaster, this cornstarch will do its job and thicken the sauce. And I boiled some white rice earlier, so these meatballs and sweet and sour sauce will be on rice. So the next thing you'll see is probably the final product. I'll put that over there for now. And here's the roaster I'm going to use. Now the meatballs are done, so I'm just going to add the sauce. I'll give it a stir and then just pour it in. It might not cover the meatballs completely, but that's okay, because if you make a second recipe of the sauce or double the recipe, you might end up with too much, and you don't want meatball soup. Now I'll just give it a little shake. And then put the lid on it. And now it's into the oven. Now I'll be putting it in the oven for about half an hour. And the next thing you should see is the meal. I just took it out of the oven and it's nice and hot. I warmed up the rice with some margarine. Now I'll just put on some sweet and sour sauce and the meatballs. And the sauce is quite thick. If you give it a day, it'll get even thicker. And there you have it, sweet and sour meatballs on white rice. Subscribe or visit my YouTube channel.